All right, welcome back everybody to the next workshop for Indigenuity 2.0, honoring the lessons of Mother. Woo! You see, I'm holding all of these color pencils and pens because our next workshop, it was with Dr. Laura Harjo. All of the students that are in the lemonade line, please come back. And we're going to start our workshop in about 1 minute. And with that, I am going to introduce one of my new favorite women on the planet, Dr. Laura Harjo.
Hello. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Laura Harjo, Chaha Chifkidos, Yaha Hulgi Amalegidos, Tuskegee Amatalwados, Duke Harjo, Date Moman, Ellen Harjo, Chachkol Getawagis, Hitche. Hello, my name is Laura Harjo. I am Wolf Clan. I'm from Tuskegee Tribal Town, and my parents are the late Duke Harjo and Ellen Harjo. And I bring my parents up because I understand that we have some folks here from NSU, and my parents actually, they went to Haskell and transferred to NSU and went to school at NSU. So I was around Tahlequah, Cherokee Elementary when I was a little kid. So I just wanted to give you guys a shout out. So I am a professor and I'm chair of Native American Studies at the University of Oklahoma. I'm here today to talk about this workshop, and it's going to be participatory, and it's called Before We Journey to the Milky Way, What Will We Create Together? So it's a participatory workshop. I have a timer here because I really run my mouth. So the idea is it's a participatory workshop. I kind of want to talk a little bit about stars and the Milky Way. So for Mvskoke people, several Mvskokes, I won't say all Mvskokes believe this, but many Mvskokes believe that when we die, we transition from material form into energy. We already embody life force and energy, but when we transition to the spirit world, we transition to energy. We travel past Orion's belt to the Milky Way, to the source of all energy. So that's one of the reasons for this idea of the Milky Way. It's a way of kind of creating this kinship network across time that I want to speak to a little bit. So I'm really talking about something that in my scholarship I call Indigenous futurity. So there's this idea then our ancestors have traveled to the Milky Way. Our ancestors have lived on this earth and seen the Milky Way, and they live in the Milky Way now. We're seeing that Milky Way. Our future relatives are seeing that Milky Way. So that's something that is static in all our lives, and not just Mvskoke people. Many indigenous communities have this belief system about the Milky Way. So I kind of use that story to wrap our head around this idea of futurity then. So because a lot of folks are familiar with the Milky Way. So if our ancestors are seeing it, that's the past. And how can we right now carry on their legacy? Or maybe they have unactivated possibilities that they weren't able to carry out in this lifetime, whether it was from dying along the Trail of Tears. Maybe there was a mother, a grandpa that didn't get to pass on his teaching about making stickball sticks, or a mother that didn't get to pass on her teaching about a Four Sisters garden. What are the unactivated possibilities that we can pick up right now that our relatives had? So that's a notion of futurity, that we're pulling that in to right now, but we're also pulling it into the future. How do we create the future that our future relatives need? How do we set that in motion right now? So if we need to really start cultivating corn, beans, squash, sunflower, four sister gardens, and thinking about how we create food from that. Like, how do we start like really producing that knowledge right now so that our future relatives have it? So that's kind of where I'm going when I'm talking about what do we create together. So we're activating our ancestors' unrealized possibilities. Maybe that happened through Trail of Tears. Maybe it's happened through COVID. I mean, that's something that many folks can wrap their head around, that folks, they transitioned out of the material form before they were finished with their work. Maybe you have the skills, the abilities to pick up that work of your relatives. So that's what we're doing today. And Dr. Dan Wildcat, I was out in Atlanta with him at the Weelaunee Forest in Atlanta, Georgia, south of Atlanta, Georgia. And that is originally Mvskoke land. And so what's happening there, like I know like a lot of folks know the history of Georgia. So Mvskoke people were pushed out of that area. That went into the Georgia land lottery. But you know, the claims around the state of Georgia being able to put that in a land lottery are tenuous. But it went from the Georgia land lottery to white plantation owners having Black slaves and Afro-Indigenous slaves on that property. And then this same property we're talking about, it turned into the Atlanta prison farm. After it was the Atlanta prison farm, it has reverted back to forest. Today, the Atlanta Police Foundation is building something called Cop City, which is basically a simulated city where they can go and practice their maneuvers and basically this idea of militarized police. So we can see that this space is continuing as carceral space. So what I had my students do, and I had folks do out there, because I'm a community planner, I think about the future, regardless of whether this is carceral space, how can we continue to imagine, despite what settler colonialism continues to enact on that land? How can we imagine something different and not put a ceiling on our dreams? So for me, I'm like, okay, I don't want this Cop City to be built, but we're still gonna go forward and think about what kind of Italwa or tribal town we wanna enact right now and in the future. So what students did, they sort of drew maps of a community that they wanted in the future in that space. They talked about an apothecary. They talked about stomp grounds on that site. They talked about being able to gather traditional medicines. They talked about having animals. They talked about having like maybe a centrally located space for convening, right? That's how our tribal towns and a lot of tribal towns and settlements were designed in the past anyway. And so they imagined that. They imagined an area where maybe cooking can happen and you can still see kids play and that sort of thing. We had some folks in the group that were non-native, and they were kind of throwing in suggestions of, well, what about a jail? And I'm like, we are not building a community so that we can jail people. Like, so that's kind of what we're doing today then, is when you think about your community, so we have this paper out here, if you feel like you're sort of from the same community, like if you're from the same school or town, you can think about that. If you want to rip a piece of paper in half and think about your native nation and your home community and not necessarily where you go to school. If you want to think about your native nation, you can think about that too. But then the prompt here is, what do you want to see in your community in 100 years? So we're making this map of the future for your community. So some things to think about around that are, what do you like about your community now? What do you want to see continue? Is it stomp grounds? Is it powwow grounds? Where are spaces of belonging? Is there a community garden? Is there a community center? Yeah, so some other ideas are what are kind of, you can think of it too. I don't really like the word assets, but I'm going to throw this out there because it sounds like very kind of capitalistic language. But what are like dimensions of your community that you feel are necessary? So like, does the sky get dark enough at night so you can see the stars? Where I'm at, it doesn't. Are there places to fish? Are there places to hunt? Are there gardens? Do you have woods that you can just go and walk through, right? Are there gathering sites? So wild onions, blackberries, mulberries, etc. Is there maybe an open air bartering market? If there's not, could there be? So this idea too, you can kind of, these are just some examples of like, what do you want in your future community? So thinking about maybe where you live, where you work, where you play, where you shop. So is it gonna be like you go and exchange with money? Or maybe somebody knows how to bead, somebody knows how to make ball sticks, somebody knows how to grow a garden, and like May inside, she's making these wonderful like dishes made out of like what you would harvest from a Four Sisters garden. So like think about that. What do you want to see in your future community? So what do you want to see in 100 years? What's missing too? What do you want to see now? So in that what's missing, I want to kind of like lay this out too. So what's missing for our two-spirit and queer folks? Because I know I have a lot of relatives that don't feel safe or don't feel that there's a place of belonging in their home community, and they have moved out of Oklahoma. So how do you create a space of belonging? Like kind of wrap your head around that. How do you think about disabled folks in your community? Women, neurodivergent, so folks that maybe have autism or ADHD, how do they get folded in and even have like maybe ways that their way of learning is addressed as well? How do you include women and kids and gamers and goth kids? I'm talking about everybody, right? So that was a task that my students took on too, and they took it seriously. So the idea of not just like, we're gonna build the most traditional town and it's gonna be for everybody that's really traditional. It's like, no, we have gamer kids, so like maybe we're gonna have like a gaming lab over here or something. So that's the task. So you have pens, paper, and start drawing out this community that you wanna see in 100 years. And again, that's for your table. There's a couple of sheets at each table. So that's up for you guys to decide if you want to look at your town. If that's easiest, that's fine. If you want to look at Tahlequah, or maybe you're from, I don't know, you're from Chewy and somebody else is from Peavine. Like if you want to look at those specific communities, that's fine too. So if you guys will do that for about 20 minutes, then I'm going to have you guys debrief. So think about like what you want to say when we debrief. So we're going to do this for 20 minutes, and then we'll come back and hear what you guys have dreamed and imagined. All right, folks, we're going to reconvene now, and let's hear about people's maps. Is anybody ready to talk about their map?
Yeah, so the maps we had created, one is kind of an overview, and the land that we are kind of addressing within ours is the Nickel Preserve out in Tahlequah Briggs area. So we have a zoomed out version, just kind of getting an overview of what the area looks like and where our Idalwa would be placed. We've got Highway 10 at the bottom and creating tree pathways to help catch any of the pollutants that come from vehicles and then go across a bridge into our town. Anything else on that one?
Hi. So we're imagining housing areas around. There'd probably be space for traditional folks to live further away from our city center. And then, more if people want to live a more modern lifestyle, they could live closer perhaps. Ceremonial grounds in the middle so everybody can come together. And then this sort of square area over here is what we're imagining as the like center community area hub. And the zoom in is here.
Okay, so for our zoom in area, we created a research hub and a monitoring station because we want to create sustainable energy utilizing hydro, solar, and possibly wind energy. And then right beside that, creating that energy would create electricity for the research hub and possibly a VOTEC. That way we can train our youth in maintaining those systems. We have community gardens down in this area, 4 plots, depending on the season, growing different types of gardens like the Four Sisters, creating a building that would pump water and also collect rain in a rain barrel. We created a food processing center where we can food, smoke food, so it's lasts throughout the winter, as well as creating food storage. And then on that side, we created 2 different ball game fields, one for traditional games, if we want to play stickball, kickball, chunky, so on and so forth, as well as a contemporary game field. And we want the land to be so everybody can get around comfortably and so that it is self-sufficient. We are also discussing creating partnerships to create trade and, again, to be self-sufficient. And since this is the Nickel Preserve, there would also be a lot of woodland. So there's deer, squirrel, so we still have protein. We could fish, possibly get honey as well if we wanted to do pollinators. But within that 20 minutes, this is what we kind of conceptualized.
Thank you. So yesterday, Johnny J was talking about preparing for the zombie apocalypse res style. And so we see how you guys are like ready to go off the grid if need be and not have to rely. Well, she said, if there was a zombie apocalypse, where would be the first place you would go? And then some people said the grocery store, but it's like you have your grocery store out in the woods and in the water. So great. Who else is ready to share their map?
I have a first language community where like just my own language would be spoken there. Like I'm Cheyenne, so I guess only Cheyenne would be spoken there. And then I have a traditional store where you can buy, sell, or barter. And then there's a traditional market. And then there's a tribal garden where I would have the foods from there. And then I would hope we could have a horse ranch. And I have a preschool and a grade school, middle school, and a high school. A hospital and a bank. I have a Cheyenne and Arapaho bank over here. Maybe we could have our own currency where we could use at these stores. And I have a 4-year Cheyenne Arapaho University over here with football, basketball, and band. I have Native American church ground, and then a traditional school where you could go and learn, like people who don't know their traditions and stuff, or like they don't know, they could go there and learn, and a ceremonial ground and a powwow ground and a elderly community center. And we have a lot of wind turbines out there, but we don't own any. So I would hope we could maybe own some. And then there's a couple rivers that go. The North Canadian River passes through our reservation, so I would hope we could have a hydroelectric power plant to maybe get some energy off of that to power our community, maybe help out our people. That's it. That's all.
Nice. Thank you. Yeah, just to echo back what I'm hearing and kind of what I'm seeing on people's maps, I hear kind of wooded areas to kind of have access to flora and fauna. I hear kind of concrete ways to continue tribal traditions. So I'll come over here to you guys. Would any of you guys like to share your map or any kind of elements of it in general?
I really loved doing this, so thank you. And I'm not going to disclose where this is exactly, but if you can see there's right now like a big highway that goes there, and then like some small roads, and there's already like some Indian homes on either side of the highway. And so one of the things that I've been like thinking about in this community that would be amazing is if there was more walkable spaces, because it already has so much potential to be a self-sustainable community. There's like a store, there's a small school. There are these buildings that are being unused right now that could be potentially what I have imagined is like a place that have access to technology, but then also health resources and potentially trade. And then I'm imagining like a food forest or orchard all around that, and overpasses for pedestrians and for animals over the highway, so that, because this is all wooded, this is just like a big kind of big hill with woods on it, that animals could go like create a what do they call it, create a corridor for animals to cross. And then these are creeks that already exist, so just doing like a lot of riparian like restoration things so that the people who live there have access to a lot of traditionally significant plants and ecosystems. And then I'm picturing this is the little school that already exists there as like a immersion school, and then having like an outdoor classroom that's part of that. And I put a beaver pond because I want to see a beaver there. But
Sounds good.
If anyone of you are familiar with I-49, it runs all the way to Alamo from here, at the Bobby Harper Tunnel, they have exactly what you're describing.
Okay.
There's a couple from Farmington or Fayetteville has bought about 700 acres where the animals can go underneath.
okay, it could be underneath.
Yeah, the freeway, this side of the Bobby Harper Tunnel.
All right, thank you. So we have about 3 minutes left. This back table, you guys have anything you want to holler at? Go for it. That's a piece of artwork right there with sunset shading, and go for it.
So this isn't really much of a surprise for me. This is just our ceremonial grounds in Tahlequah that we go to. I say we, but not very many of us go. But I put circa 2026 on there because I want to see a community garden and like River Cane on water at some point, but it's mostly just like a small wooded area out of town. And so but that's it. It's just
Yeah. No, that's good. You've got what I've heard here today is artisan resources, thinking about flora and fauna. And part of the exercise is not just about this reimagination, but is actually talking to the people that are sitting next to you, because this is also creating a future is also about being in relationship with one another and building out a kinship network. So, do you mind if I pick this up? So this is kind of an exercise from this book. I have a bunch of community-based exercises that people can do themselves, but it's in this book, and this book is available inside. But really the idea is that people don't need an outsider to come in and have them do this. Like, you don't need me to tell you to do this. Like, you can do this yourself. So the idea then is like taking these tools to your community and thinking through the things that you want to see. So you've already kind of taken a first step of what you imagine for a future. What if you talk to your other relatives and ask them? And then how do you kind of come together and start making plans and taking action on how to create that? So give yourselves a big round of applause, and thank you so much for everybody participating today. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Before you go, I would like to introduce you to Summer Wilkie. She does so much at the U of A as a student youth coordinator. I'm going to let you tell about your bona fides and everything you have coming up. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Hardrow. That was amazing. Were any of you all here yesterday for the food sovereignty discussion? Well, my director, Aaron Parker was able to be here in conversation with Mark Ford from Feeding America. And the Indigenous Food and Agriculture Initiative at the University of Arkansas is in the law school, and we serve Native farmers and producers and tribal leaders all over the country advocating for, just helping communicate opportunities related to the Farm Bill and help get feedback delivered back to the federal government. But we also have all these amazing youth programs that I'm directing. So if you all don't have any plans for next summer, then I would like to encourage you to check our Instagram or find our website and watch for applications for our youth programming. We host a leadership summit that is all about food sovereignty, and we cover different aspects of food sovereignty. So no matter what you're interested in, you can come and learn. And we have a lot of really amazing young people from all over the nation, including Hawaii, who come to Fayetteville to just dive deep into food sovereignty topics. So if any of y'all are interested in that, you can follow us on Instagram. Our account is just food sovereignty with no spaces, or you can find us online at Indigenous Food and Agriculture Initiative at the University of Arkansas. So, and that's for ages 16 to 24. We have something for all those ages. So if any of you all have younger brothers and sisters who might be interested, they can probably come and join us too. So the applications will be coming live January or February. So, and if you go to our Instagram page, you can see some posts and pictures of what we did this summer. So hope some of you will think about it. Thank you.